Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corey Hinkle, and I'll be your host today for the Ankerstar Wealth Daily Update. We've got an exciting day with lots of good news headlines coming across the tape. I've got a few of the headlines that aren't quite as fun, like Fed meeting or UK trade deal that doesn't even have a signed deal, but it is moving the markets. But Steve has the big topic at the end, which you might see it on his hat, you might see it on his sweater, you might see it behind him on the wall, and it rhymes. It ends with a coin. I'll tell you that. All right, before I get started, I do want to remind everyone that this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything you hear in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com. And of course, the opinions expressed are mine and Steve's alone. Okay, I'm going to start it off. Why is the market moving higher today? The largest piece of news that came out was the I wanted to say the Trump trade deal. It's the UK trade, United Kingdom and United States trade deal. So there's a couple important things here, and I'll give you a spoiler. One of the important things is not so much what's in the trade deal. It's nothing too groundbreaking there. But what's important is it's the first trade deal. So it's the first domino, right? A sign of things to come. And it does reflect that trade deals are possible. So it's the first one. It kind of shows us what's coming, and it does show us what is possible. Maybe we will get to the other side of all this. I did read through all of the fact sheet details. Nothing too crazy. Steve, did you hear anything, or was there anything about the trade deal other than the actual fact that it's the first deal that you became aware of?
Nope, the numbers were lukewarm and kind of expected. Just the headline is that there is one, so it's hopefully starting a wave of several more.
And I'll build on that. Let me slide over here. Trump has kind of doubled down as of today that the 10% tariff floor isn't going away. So that inflationary kind of spike that could come from these tariffs is likely to remain in place. I don't know why, but when I read this quote from him, I trusted it. I do think he's going to stick to that 10%, especially after saying something like this. And then he does kind of throw his threat quote out there. Some will be much higher. And we'll see how all that plays out. The other piece of news from yesterday, the Fed is having to deal with all this, and they did hold rates steady. Kind of a good thing for anyone holding cash, because we do get that elevated risk-free rate for at least a few more months. But what's the Fed looking at? They have kind of strong employment. Employment numbers have remained pretty strong. Inflation is really kind of dead, even though they don't know what the tariffs are going to do for that. But current inflation, you look at energy, you look at commodities, you look at housing, my goodness, current inflation is really dead. But the Fed doesn't know what these tariffs are going to do. So, they're kind of in a wait and see. It's very easy to argue that the Fed should have probably lowered rates yesterday. There is some softening consumer data, real softening data that would indicate, would justify a rate cut, but you kind of can't blame them too much for leaving it. And, the only concern is, are they going to wait too long? Possibly they already have, depending on who you ask, but it does depend on who you ask. So we'll know in hindsight if they waited too long. All right, if you made it through the boring Fed rate cut decision where they didn't do anything different, you get the cherry on top. So Steve, tell the people what they want to hear.
All right, let's do it. Let's first of all, it's good to be back on the show. Thanks, Corey, for being the boss. I got to reteach myself how to share out screens and things as I go through permissions on my MacBook. This is fun. Okay, let's get to the windows. I think I've almost got it. Okay, right here. So this is about Bitcoin. I'm excited to tell you about it. I'm giving you some inside baseball look real time right now into the Schwab Advisor Center. There's no names here. I have that all protected, but these are our top holdings. And you know that if you've listened to any of our stuff, really, that we moved into Bitcoin. If you kind of talk about the journey, as the ETFs came out, which was January 11th of 2024. Many of us are saying that should be a national holiday. We shall see. Before that, it was GBTC and not everybody. After the 11th, it started going January 11th of last year. Again, what's that, 16 months ago. More aggressive accounts moved in, and then you started to see it throughout 2024 move into some other accounts in the form of BITB, which is our top holding. There's another speculative play that is now our 10th holding called MicroStrategy. That tends to get a lot more press. So if you're looking at any Google Bitcoin news or whatever, you hear a lot of MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor, the CEO, which Mike and Joel and I all got to meet in Miami about a month ago. So there's a lot of press here with Bitcoin. Since then, since the summer of last year, Mike started looking at a comprehensive Bitcoin strategy to find some different exposure to it because it's very volatile, which means it's not right for everybody. We do have some new funds out there. I call them new. They're not super new, as in, they're months, not weeks old. But CBOA, CBOJ, these are some hedged exposures to these funds that allow us to get you some Bitcoin exposure at a lower risk level. So we do have that in place now. If that's something you want to talk to your advisor about because you just don't understand it, we welcome that. We want you to ask those questions. We're not going to be mad at you when you ask Bitcoin questions. We want you to learn and understand the potential this thing has. And nobody can see the future clearly, but there is a very good potential when you look at the history of money and money being a social construct, that we might step away from having dead presidents on paper to having a full internet-based money that's global, that puts everybody on a flat level field, and your government can't just print more money because they feel like it and debase their own currency, which you've seen happen since COVID. So anyhow, this backing away from the fact of why you should own it. But when you think of it, you really can think of it as a digital gold. So would you have exposure to gold in a volatile market like this? Yes. So that's why you have exposure to Bitcoin. So let's look at what's going on specifically today. There's your Bitcoin metric. It's up 5%. It's over 100,000. There's nothing magic about the 100,000 mark, except for it's just kind of a, when you go through a natural number, like you add a 6 digit onto the 5 digits, that's kind of exciting. But yeah, so when you talk about how high has it been, December 15th of last year, we got to the 108 level, the 107 level on the 15th, and then drip back down. Like I said, it's volatile. So when you think of 108 and then touching 90, 2 weeks later, that's not for everybody, right? Be careful what roller coaster you get on. Then it goes right back up, and I think I found a peak in here where, there it is, where the hot intraday high was 109, 350, but it closed at 103,000. Yeah, 6,000 down from its intraday high. This thing can move, so it's not right for everybody. But if you kind of look at the chart, it has dropped all the way down and went down to the 70s. 76, 63 is what I'm seeing as a low there, and now it's back above 100. Obviously, we're very optimistic. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't guarantee anything, but it has more tailwinds out there. When you think of the news of the last 24 hours, the Arizona governor vetoed a bill to establish a state Bitcoin reserve, and then less than 24 hours after there was a lot of pushback, she signed a different one. Let her save face and sign a different one that established it. But 3 states in the last 24 hours have approved a Bitcoin reserve: New Hampshire, and I can't remember the third one. Missouri also came out today and said your gains in Bitcoin will not be taxed at the state level. also another tailwind. So a lot of things to be excited about here. When you think, okay, and we just had, if you think of the happy hours, if you can see the background here, I don't think my screen's showing anymore, but we do have a Bitcoin hanging in the in-game lounge here, and we host these happy hours. And we had 2 happy hours in the last week. On Friday, we had Texas Capital talking about how to invest in Texas. Then on Monday, we had Grayscale come in and talk largely about crypto, but most of that is on Bitcoin. And, you know, the question is it going away? Well, when you look at market cap, and this is, you know, we don't really talk market cap a lot, but if you're in the investing game, you do, because you want to know what's too big, right? You know, what are the biggest things in the world, because those things have protection, right? So this is from CoinGecko. I can't vouch for this is, you know, immediately, you know, whether, and this is of June 28 of last year, but Bitcoin, who was right here, was at a 1.25 trillion market cap, is now over a 2 million market, or 2 trillion. I'm using the wrong trillion. I'm using a couple orders of the wrong trillions. 2 trillion market cap and just past Google. So it's like 5th on the list. Gold is, if I looked last night, I think is 23 trillion. So then you have, you know, your big Mag 7 type names, and then your Bitcoin. I think this has the market cap on it, if I remember right. Okay, maybe not, but it's not going away, and it's not going to zero. Obviously, it can be challenged. You know, nothing is guaranteed to stick around forever. But it certainly is set up, and I believe in the long-term thesis of it. If you decide that you want to learn more, there's a book out there there's a paper, out there called The Bitcoin Standard that you can read in about an hour that lays out quite a thesis for it. And then Michael Saylor gave an hour-long speech yesterday. So if you just Michael Saylor's speech, you'll get a hit on it pretty quick. Really informative of, you know, how, you know, of where people, you know, think this is going. Some things that are thrown out there is more people own Bitcoin than pets, and it seems like everybody owns pets. So really something to think about, and take the time to educate yourself, and/or call your advisor if you want to learn more.
Thank you, Steve. Well, super exciting news. I couldn't compete with that. But that's all we have for you today. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another episode of the Ankerstar Wealth Daily Update. Goodbye, everyone.
Have a good one.